Breaking tonight, and if you haven't seen Hillary's America, the latest effort from writer and director Dinesh D'Souza, it is an eye-opening look at the Democratic candidate for president as well as the party that she represents. Take a look at this.
Today claim to be the party of progress. But where's the progress? For blacks, they've created new urban plantations. For Indians, reservations. And for poor immigrants, barrios, ghettos, and slums. They put their voters in there and make sure they stay there. The only progress we see is progress for them. More wealth, more power, more control over America and over our lives. The Clintons are worthy successors of a tradition from Andrew Jackson through Woodrow Wilson.
Wow. With me now, author and director of Hillary's America, Dinesh D'Souza. Dinesh, I have to tell you, I have seen that twice. And my hat's off to you, and you know how much I think of that movie, and I even have the book. I read it, and I even, you know, talked to Donald Trump about it. I thought it was an incredible discussion. And what I don't think most Americans realize is the history of the Democrat Party as it relates to slavery, the taking away of Indian lands, putting Indians on reservations, and as it relates to civil rights in this country. Now, I don't want to get into a long discussion of it, but I want to talk to you about the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. So tell me about those amendments and how they were voted on as it relates to Democrats and Republicans.
Well, the 13th Amendment was the amendment that permanently abolished slavery. The Republicans pushed it. The Democrats unanimously, as a bloc, opposed it. But it passed. The 14th Amendment granted equal rights under the law. If I'm not mistaken, not a single Democrat voted for it.
Right.
The Republicans once again got it through. The 15th Amendment was the right to vote. Republicans pushed it through. The Democrats again in uniform opposition. Now, why is this important? It's important because Democrats today will claim credit for the civil rights movement of the 1960s. The Civil Rights Act of '64, the Voting Rights Act of '65. But those laws were all based upon constitutional provisions that had been put into the Constitution 100 years previously by the Republican Party, and their enforcement had been blocked for almost a century by the Democratic Party. So that's why this history is so important. The Democrats to this day claim to be the party of the good guys, of the little guys, of minorities, of women. Now, the real history is that the Democrats blocked women's suffrage.
Yeah.
They were the party of the Ku Klux Klan. They were the party of immigration restrictions,
Dinesh,
forced sterilization.
Dinesh, nobody believes that. If I went out and did my man on the street, not that they're geniuses out there, but I asked them, that everybody would swear on their homes that the Republicans are the ones who are the KKK and all that. Why?
Well, the funny thing is that once they see our movie, what the left is now saying is, yes, Dinesh, we admit it. You're right. It's true. But it's ancient history. It's all so long ago. Women's suffrage was 100 years ago. And I say, wait a minute. We're not just talking about women's suffrage. In the 1960s, chauvinist Democrats tried to kill the Civil Rights Act of 1964 with a gender amendment. It backfired on them. But all of this is not as far back in the past as you think. And the reason it's important to highlight it is it shows the Democratic narrative to be a lie, and it strips the moral capital away from the Democratic Party.
All right, let me ask you then, in terms of the opening statement and the inner cities and the Democrat Party and the issue of crime, and we're going to be going to David Clark. How is it that the Democrat Party, in terms of your perspective, is continuing the crime issue and not creating a safe haven for the minority community?
So in the book and the movie, I use a controversial phrase. It's the Democratic urban plantation. And the reason I use that phrase is that there are so many chilling similarities between the old slave plantations, the rural plantations that the Democratic Party used to run, and what's going on in the inner cities. So in the old slave plantations, if you look at what life was like, you had ramshackle dwellings, broken families, a lot of illegitimacy, a lot of violence necessary to hold the place together because slavery was based on coercion. Everybody had a meager living. You'd get health care, for example, but no one ever got ahead. A lot of nihilism, a lot of hopelessness, a lot of despair.
Sounds
well,
like
that's
today.
exactly what you see today, not just for inner city blacks, by the way.
Coming
you see
up
it on
against the break. Dinesh, we'll get your book. Dinesh D'Souza, thanks for being with us. You heard Donald Trump and I talking about law and order in America. Next guest calls progressive policies a total disaster, not only for his home city of Milwaukee, but for many other major cities across the United States. Here to discuss what needs to be done before it's too late, Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark. All right, good evening, Sheriff. You know, we have been talking so far this evening on the problems of the urban community, the inner cities as it relates to poverty, crime. We're seeing it act out in real time every day in this country. And with Dinesh D'Souza, we saw the history of it that doesn't seem to change from generation to generation. Now, you have been in law enforcement, and you are close up in real time to what has happened in Milwaukee. How do you interpret what's going on, and do you see it changing in the near future?
Well, I don't see it changing in the near future because the political class won't change. Milwaukee is under control by the progressive liberal Democrats. Their failed urban policies have wrecked the city of Milwaukee, the city that I grew up in, the city that I was raised in and have been a part in for all of my life. Milwaukee used to be a strong middle-class city. Strong middle class, a lot of jobs, good education system. That's all been flipped over the last 50 years. We're now the 6th poorest city in America for a city of its size, with 1 in every 4 people living in poverty. You have a failing K-12 public education system, one of the worst in the nation. You have massive black unemployment. You have dysfunctional families. All of this has been exacerbated under this progressive idea of how to run cities. Look, the progressive rule of these cities has wrecked these cities, and not just Milwaukee. You look at Baltimore, you mentioned them. Donald Trump mentioned them. Dinesh D'Souza mentioned it as well. Baltimore, you look at St. Louis, you look at L.A. Chicago's on the brink right now as well. Until there's a change in the political class, and that's not going to happen too soon in Milwaukee. That's why I say I don't see things changing. All they're doing right now as we speak, is these same progressive Democrats have their hands out looking to Washington for more federal money.
Sheriff, what needs to be done? Look, you and I can sit here and say, look, bad people need to be arrested, guns need to be stopped, gun trafficking, throw them in jail, all that stuff. But what else needs to be done?
You need to shrink the size of the underclass. The underclass has grown significantly in Milwaukee. How do you shrink the size of the underclass? Stop funding all of this dysfunction. Stop funding this growth of government in the lives of people in Milwaukee. That's where the Republicans can help. They can step in, not with more money, but to slowly, because you can't pull the rug out from people, and you know, that'd be a cruel thing to do. Slowly start to defund this dysfunction and tie any more federal money to achievement, for accomplishment. In other words, the poverty rate is as such in Milwaukee. If it doesn't go down in the next 3-5 years, less money. If it doesn't go down after that, less money, because eventually what will happen in the American ghetto, look, black people are resilient. We've overcome slavery. We've overcome Jim Crow. We have not been able to overcome modern liberalism and the progressive liberal movement. That's been a stifling thing for us. We have not figured that out. But they will if they're made to stand up on their own 2 feet, figure some of these things out for themselves, realize they are being hoodwinked by the Democrat Party. I find it encouraging that Donald Trump went out there and pleaded. He asked for the vote of the black community all throughout the United States.
What do you have to lose?
I find that unique.
It is unique in the whole paradigm. I mean, the whole discussion was unique. Not even mentioning the schools and the failed system of schooling, where these kids are dropping out and failing and, you know, just being, you know, self-fulfilling, that they're not going anywhere. Sheriff David Clark, thanks so much for being with us this evening. All right.
My pleasure, Judge.
The best political panel around is on deck. Chris Hahn and John Thomas standing by to talk the Donald, Hillary, and the big push to November. And then, are Trump voters staying under wraps until Election Day because of the liberal media? I'll explain my theory and talk about it with an expert. Another big week for both campaigns as scandal continues to plague the Clinton camp, and yet another staff shakeup dominates the Trump headlines. Here to break it all down, my political panel, former senior aide to Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer, Chris Hahn, and Republican consultant John Thomas. Good evening, gentlemen.
Thanks,
okay, let's start with the flooding. I'll start with you, Chris. Now, the Democrats and the mainstream media couldn't wait to go after President George Bush with Katrina. At least the man showed up. He may have been 30,000 feet up, but at least he showed up. Donald Trump runs to Louisiana, and Barack Obama with no plans, no criticisms, no one saying anything about it. After Trump goes, Barack Obama says, "Oh, I'll go next week."
Well, the Louisiana authorities might question whether or not it was wise for him to be there, and they're also very satisfied with the federal response, which is a big difference between Katrina and now.
Oh, wait a minute.
But,
so while he's playing golf, you think those people who lost their homes or I lost a home in a flood.
Well,
I'm not happy with the federal response.
Hold on a second. The governor of Louisiana did not want the president of the United States to go there because when the president comes, it is rather disruptive. He wanted to get the situation under control. And then
well, then why did a Republican in New Jersey want the president to come?
Well, it's the same reason why George Bush didn't land, and he was unfairly criticized for not landing. It was the federal response that was a problem.
Oh, I'll let you get away with it because you said George Bush was unfairly criticized. I want you to make a note of this. All my viewers, all you Justice viewers, the first time a Democrat has ever taken George Bush's side. All right, there he is on the golf course.
For his bad response, though.
John Thomas. All right, I'm going to ask you this now. The ransom. Was it a ransom? And we've got this, I'm going to ask you to look at this shot. John Kirby, let's pull up this sound.
In basic English, you're saying that you wouldn't give them the $400 million in cash until the prisoners were released, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, the next day, Kirby comes out, and Chris, you'll get a charge out of this. Kirby comes out. His eyes are bloodshot. He didn't sleep all night, you know he didn't, and he tried to walk it back. He basically said it was a ransom is a ransom, but the president says, and I got to read this, the president says, well, very smug, by the way, it wasn't some nefarious deal that we explained that Iran pressed a claim in an international tribunal, he says, and the lawyer said we had to pay it. What do you think it was, John?
It was a ransom. You know, if it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it was a ransom. But here's what's most offensive about it, Judge, is not only did they lie about it, but the United States, because of that $400 million transfer and the Iran deal, is the world's largest sponsor of terrorism, if you think about it. The disastrous policies of the last 8 years, and by extension, Hillary Clinton, when she was Secretary of State, got us into the situation we are today. And that's what this race has to be about, because Americans know we are worse off and less safe than we were 8 years ago.
Here's the bottom line, Chris. Americans aren't going to care about this or that or this or that. We can say till the cows come home, we should care about this and that. It's just that little piece in the middle. All right, because in terms of presidential elections, we've never had people so despised, and I'm going to talk about that in my next block. What is it going to take to convince the middle that one candidate or the other is worth following? And I don't need to hear about how Donald had a bad week or Hillary had a bad week, because right now, Donald had a great week. He's up, according to LA Times, a half a point. I mean, this is a very fluid situation.
I've been saying to others for weeks that, you know, Donald Trump could turn 6 points around in a day. But that said, I think what the American people want is they want somebody that they can trust with their future and their security, not just their economic security, but the actual security of this nation. They want somebody who's got the right temperament to lead this country. Both of them have very high unfavorables. One of them, though, appears to most Americans to be more likely to understand what the job is. That's why the debates are so important. That's why when he said earlier on your show that he's not preparing for the debates, I would be very concerned with that if I was a Donald Trump person.
Well, hey, he was winging it in the primary. But, John, let me ask you that. What is the key word that Chris just said they have to be able to trust?
That's exactly what I was about to say, Judge. I said I couldn't agree with Chris in this instance more. Trust is the issue, and trust is Hillary Clinton's problem. Over 70% of Americans say they not only distrust Hillary, they think she's a liar. Director Comey said she's a liar. So that's what Donald Trump has to do. That is the secret sauce in this home stretch.
But everybody knows that, John. Everybody knows that. That's
but
what
Judge,
I'm saying.
but Judge, that we move so quickly in the news cycle
that
it's whatever
lies.
Happened last is what people remember.
You're right.
Americans don't trust politicians in general.
What happens last? Chris, what'd you say real fast? What'd you say?
Americans just don't trust politicians in general, and Americans right now see her more as a politician than him.
So why not rob a few banks? Say they figure they're not honest anyway. Chris Hahn, John Thomas, thanks for being with us. And street justice is still ahead tonight. Plus, are Donald Trump voters hiding from pollsters? I'm going to tell you why we could be in for a big surprise come November. My theory. Don't go away.
They're morally tainted. I mean, there's just no question about that. You can't say he's a racist, and what he said was textbook racism, but I support him because he's the nominee of my party.
Wow. That's ABC News political commentator and Hillary Clinton fan, Cokie Roberts, talking about Donald Trump supporters. But could this media bias against Trump actually influence the polls on Election Day in the opposite way that they've been telling us, and end up being a big reason behind a Trump win? Joining me now, Vanderbilt University professor of political science and law, Carol Swain. Good evening, Professor. It is very good to have you on the show. You know, when I heard Cokie Roberts say that, I was stunned. I mean, everyone knows that Donald's my friend, that I support him. But to hear someone who works for ABC and PBS say that if I support him, I am morally tainted is shocking from the mainstream media. Now, we've heard from PBS and from, I think, some of the other mainstream outlets that, you know, it's not just the less educated. They're calling them the low information voters. I mean, there's so much editorializing. Is that the way it's supposed to be?
Well, it's certainly not the way it's supposed to be, and it's also absolutely wrong according to the data. During the spring, The Economist published a poll that showed that 43% of the Trump supporters had college degrees, and as far as the ones that have low levels of education, high school degrees or less, that's only 16% of the Republican base and a fifth of the Trump supporters. And so it's really misinformation. I think Mr. Trump draws from all sectors of society, including women. During the primaries, he never got less than 25% of the female vote in those states where he won.
Are the Democrats relying on a self-fulfilling prophecy where if you say something long enough, people not only believe it, but they follow it?
Well, I think it's that Saul Alinsky strategy of using ridicule to embarrass people. And so they have set up a situation where there are people that are supporting Donald Trump, but they're afraid to share that information. And I have met so many people, and this is anecdotal data, I've met so many people that are Democrats or highly educated colleagues that tell me that they whisper that they're going to vote for Donald Trump. And I know that for myself, I am a Trump supporter now.
But
I didn't start off as a Trump supporter. But, I mean, I had to really think about it. You know, I'm educated, so I'm supposed to support someone, you know, that, according to the media and within the Republican Party, it was assumed that, of course, you would support either Ted Cruz or Rubio or someone more acceptable. And I think that the Trump support is underestimated and that people are afraid to put bumper stickers on their cars and yard signs in their yards because they know.
We may be surprised at the election. But let's talk about one other issue quickly. Has the Democratic Party taken black voters for granted?
Of course they have, and they've done this, you know, as far as I can remember. I hope that the black community that they are already awakening. I see some of this among young people. I came out of the Democratic Party and became a Republican in 2009. I'd like to see more African Americans do that. We can't continue to do the same thing over and over and over again and expect a different result.
And ultimately, you know, in terms of the mainstream media and, you know, propelling this belief or this concept that, you know, there's no way Donald can win and he's going to ruin everything. I mean, you know, how much impact do you think that has on someone and on the voters in general?
I think it discourages people and it makes them wonder whether or not it's true. But I believe we're going to have a surprise on Election Day. I actually believe that Donald Trump is going to be our next president, and I believe that he will be a good president because his approach will be different. The bureaucracy has been in shambles for decades, and it needs the hand of someone that knows something about business. And there are just so many other areas where we do need someone that's going to infuse Washington with new people and a new way of thinking.
All right, Carol Swain, thanks so much for being with us this evening.
Where are we going with this interview?
Which interview? This is a war led by a woman. And you are having a new woman president.
No!
Yes?
No!
She is doing well.
No!
Yes.
No!
Yes, again.
Let's see who wins.
All right. Thanks so much for your loyalty.